Hello and welcome to another React tutorial video. In this video, we will be learning how we can create a backdrop component in our React application. If you don't know what is a backdrop component, I have a demonstration here so I can show you. As you can see, I have a web app running. So at this moment, the device width is about 1275. So this is basically designed for the laptop or desktop screen width, but when you go to the let's say tablet or mobile view, then we get rid of that. As you can see, this nav bar, so and a particular width that basically will gone. As you can see, it's gone, and we just left off with this hamburger menu. Okay. And when we click on it, as you can see, we got our nav bar or navigation menu, and then at the rest of the screen, at the back side of the navigation bar, we have kind of transparent layer, which then represent that the rest of the screen is basically disabled, and the user then basically forced to focus on the navigation bar only. Okay, and as you can also see, we don't have any close or exit button here, so the users basically, when we tap on this transparent layer, as you can see, both of them are gone. The transparent layer is gone, and also the navigation bar. And when you click on it, the both of them is appear at the same time. So this particular things is called the backdrop. So it basically help the user to understand that basically as you can see, I'm scrolling, but the scrolling is also disabled. All right, so backdrop is basically help a user to understand that the rest of the screen is basically disabled, and they are only forced to focus on the navigation bar, so they can do something here. Okay, and also, let's say if you don't have any exit or close button, so then basically user can click on the backdrop component and then basically close the navigation bar and the backdrop component itself. Okay, so this today's video is all about it. So let's see how we can build it. But as you can see, I basically will not use these particular apps for building it, because this is my one of the test project I was building. So I will be not doing that here. As you can see, it's already built it here, so I will build it from the scratch. Okay, so let's follow along. Okay, as I said, I will basically build it from the scratch. So I will basically pull up a application where the backdrop hasn't been defined yet. Okay, so I have just application like that. I'll basically navigate it to that folder. It's called burger app. Okay, sorry. And let's start the development server. Okay, by the time the development server basically starts, I will show you how the project structure look like. Okay, the project has been built in a particular it has, as you can see, the app is start already, and this is a very basic application just to show you how the backdrop component works. So excuse me, I will basically show you that the backdrop component is not here, or it has been declared here. So as you can see, if we go to a certain width, we do get a hamburger menu, and we also get a side drawer, so to speak. When you click on it, it basically appear on the screen. But as you can see, we don't have any close button or exit button, and we also don't have a backdrop component. Okay, and as you can see, I'm clicking outside of the rest of the screen, but nothing is happening, nothing is closing. Okay, so let's do that in this video. Okay, let's have a look through our project structure. So I have a source folder, and I have assets where I basically stored all the pictures and PNG files in there. So I have a component folder. In there, I basically have a draw toggle. So draw toggle is basically when I go to a certain width, I have basically a hamburger menu. So as you can see, this button here is basically, I named it draw toggle. Okay, and I have a logo. Then I have navigation folder when I have navigation items, main, the parent item, and the navigation items, which is basically an individual item. And then I have a order message, order summary, which I will not go through in this video. So our main focus in this video is basically toolbar. Okay, let's basically start from our root component or app component. Okay, so as you can see, I basically rendered the layout component from our app component. So let's just basically pull up this layout component somewhere. I think it's in the containers. Yep, so I have a container and it's layout. So in layout, as you can see, I am basically rendering this toolbar and the side drawer. Okay, so if you don't know what the toolbar is, so basically toolbar is basically this whole the header basically. So it basically contains the logo and the navigation, or the page navigation. Okay, and then I have a sidebar. Excuse me. I have a sidebar which basically not appear on the screen and at this width. So let's say when we go down to 750, I guess, yes, 750, and still now the side drawer is not here. So when you click on it, and this is basically the side drawer. Okay, and the sidebar, and then have a burger builder. So the burger builder is basically okay, I need to reload the app. So the burger builder is basically this component over here. As this video is basically about the backdrop, so we'll not go through it. So, and you know already, so what is backdrop? Okay, so we'll just basically start building backdrop here. So our main idea here is, as you can see, when we click on the hamburger menu, and at this point, I want to basically display the basically the backdrop component all over. Okay, and I will basically add a event listener. So when I click on it, then basically the navigation bar and the backdrop itself basically close. Okay, so let's basically go with the creating the backdrop component. Okay, so in the component folder, I will basically create a folder called backdrop, and in the backdrop folder I will create a file called backdrop.js. As always, a CSS file. It's called backdrop.module.css. Okay, in the backdrop.js file, I have to import React as always. React from React library, and also import styles from backdrop.module.css. Okay, and the backdrop component itself, so I named it backdrop, so it should be backdrop, and then it basically takes some props here, and then it will return basically some JSX. Okay, and there has to be a function body because I'm basically rendering something by conditionally. Okay, so all it does just return a div. Okay, at the end of the file it should export default. Okay. And what's the idea here is, hang on a second, I'll show you. I will basically pull up. Okay, I did it a couple of, let's just get rid of. Okay, so the idea behind this is, as you can see, I have a state in my layout component. Okay, and then the layout component will then have a variable or property which should say, let's say backdrop value, which will initialize with false. Okay, which means when the page load, then the app load for the first time, then the backdrop value would be false, and that time we basically want our backdrop value not appear on this on the screen. So we will basically then left over a event handler function, and when the event handler function, then I can show you better demonstration on the in the drawing over here. Okay, so let's say I have a state here in my layout component. Okay, I'm not good at drawing over here. I will just, it's very terrible, as you can see. Anyway, just to it basically give you an idea. Okay, I have couple of component. Let's say, oh, it's way too big. Anyway, let's say this is our I'm basically defining in the hang on a second. Okay, sidebar. Okay, so where is sidebar? Okay, this is our sidebar component. Okay, so basically we have some state here. Let's say this backdrop value, which is basically false initially, and this is the sidebar. Okay, so what I do, I will basically put an event handler over here. So whenever I click on it, or basically when I basically click on the hamburger menu, it will basically trigger the function, and the function then basically force an update or a re-render on the state. So it will basically set the value of the layout, I mean this backdrop value, to true, which will then basically trigger the backdrop to appear on the screen. Okay, and then I will basically also attach a event handler on the backdrop component. So whenever I click on the backdrop component anywhere on the backdrop component, then it will basically also trigger a re-rendering or basically update the state. So it basically set the value of the backdrop value to false again, and that time it will basically make the navigation bar at the backdrop to close. Okay, so that's the general idea. Okay, so let's see, I have already defined the backdrop value to false, so then let's just okay, let's see. Okay, and at first let's finish the backdrop itself. So as you can see, I have declared the backdrop component, but I haven't finished it yet, so I have to basically set some styling for that. Excuse me. So class name should be styles.main, and that's basically it. It doesn't render or display anything. So let's say in main I have this height, let's say 100 view height, and width is also 100%. Okay, and I want its position to absolute, and then I want its position to top 0, then left 0. Okay, and now I basically don't want to appear the backdrop component all the way to the top. So let's say I have the navigation bar, and then I want my backdrop to just below to this navigation bar. Okay, so this is my if you see from the side, so this is my navigation bar, and I want to set the backdrop just below to that. Okay, so not on the top, so at the bottom, and I want to set the backdrop between the navigation bar and the basically rest of the component or element, as you can say. So for that I have to set a jet index. All right, so I think it should be 95. I'm not sure about the navigation bar, so let's see that. Navigation. Okay, so navigation items. So by default it should have. Okay, let's go with the 95 at this point, and this is for if we don't see it's not working, so we can change it anyway. So we have to set the background color for now, and it shouldn't be black all the way. I want to set it transparent so I can basically see through what is behind it. So I can set this nice little transparent color here, and let's see how does it look like now. Okay, so what I will do is in the sidebar I will then basically import that backdrop from it, basically detect automatically. So as you can see, if we go to define it, declare it here, we'll get some error, right? And the error is regarding to I think I mentioned in an earlier video that this is basically the returning some JSX. Okay, and it everything we want to declare, it should be inside the div. If we want to declare another div, it will throw some error. It's saying that it can't have another div. Okay, but for that I can have some, or maybe declare some wrapping component, wrapper component or higher order component, which is basically then take whatever you put inside, and then it basically then return as their child. Okay, so I have declared already, I'm not going through in this video. Okay, I have named it aux, so I can basically declare it here aux. So whatever I want to declare, I have to declare it inside the aux component. Okay, so that basically it. And let's see how does it look like for now. Okay, at this point, as you can see, we are not getting it. We definitely have some error. Backdrop styles.main backdrop. Okay, styles.main. Okay, I think I basically put the backdrop in the wrong place, because if we want to see the backdrop in effect, or how does it look, and sidebar is basically when you click the hamburger menu, so we have to place in some place so we can basically see in the general. So we can basically import in the layout component, let's say backdrop here, and it has to be of course uppercase at the beginning, and I also want to import aux from aux, so let's wrap everything inside the aux component. Okay, and then here we can basically define the backdrop component, which then will render the backdrop. Okay, as you can see, the backdrop is not basically rendering, so we can go to the console menu to see is this really rendering. If you go there, and this is the layout component and this is the div. As you can see, this is the layout component. All right, styles.layout. I'm using CSS module, so as you can see this random number here, but on the top this is the div, and basically it doesn't have any styling, which means that the style we have defined for backdrop is not in effect. So we can see that. Okay, so I got what is basically wrong here. I should write module, not module. So that's, and I also can see I basically declared the file name as module as well. So that's why it wasn't basically getting the style. Okay, and it should module. All right, at this point, as you can see, we can see the backdrop, though the color is a bit lighter, so we can set something, let's say a bit deeper at this point. Okay, so this is much obvious. Okay, so this is the backdrop we want to appear when basically when we click on the hamburger menu. Okay, so now we can see that basically is working, but now the question is, where's the best place to declare the backdrop component? Okay, in my opinion, I think let's say when you click on draw toggle, or let's say hamburger menu, so we reload it, we no longer have that hamburger menu, I mean this backdrop component. Okay, so in my opinion, so whenever I click on the draw toggle, or let's say hamburger menu, then the sidebar component that's basically rendered. Okay, so we can say whenever the sidebar component render, only that time I want to render the let's say the backdrop component. Okay, so in my opinion, I should declare the backdrop component in the sidebar. Okay, so as you can see, I basically imported the sidebar, I mean backdrop, in few minutes ago. So I will just reinitialize here. Okay, and let's see how does it look for now. And obviously, because we haven't set any logic for that, but okay, hang on a second, it should work. Okay, it's not coming because the backdrop is basically top of the draw toggle. All right, so let's define the logic for that. Okay, so how we can basically render the backdrop when the hamburger menu is basically hamburger menu basically clicked. Okay, so for that, if we go to the layout, and as you can see, I have declared a property backdrop value false, and I have a, let's say, in the toolbar I have passed a function called switch draw, which I believe is basically toggling the hamburger menu. Okay, so let's just get rid of that backdrop for now, and we go to the layout component. If we go to the toolbar, we can see the switch toggle is basically setting the backdrop value, which was, okay, hang on a second, okay, it was basically declared previously. Okay, so we just get rid of it now. And sidebar, as you can see, sidebar is basically setting to right opposite, so it is false and is basically tweaking to true. And this is where the place we can basically use in this function we can basically use to make that value true. Okay, so what you can do, as you can see, this is the set state function. Okay, set state method. So it is basically returning a JavaScript object, or is basically the immutable way to set the, not immutable, is basically is an alternative way to set the state. So let's say if the general state to call the set state method is this dot set state, and then you basically pass the whatever you want to change. Let's say backdrop value you want to set to, let's say, true here. Okay, so in some cases that doesn't take effect immediately. Okay, so for that I have basically set the state in a way so it basically return a function. Okay, and this is the function, and then it will basically return a JavaScript object, and then it basically take effect immediately. Okay, so that's why maybe it looks a bit weird to you if you haven't seen it before. So what I want to do here now, I will basically, this function is basically rendering that this navigation menu. Okay, so in this function I will then set the backdrop value to what it was. Let's say not previous state. Okay, dot backdrop value. Okay, so what do I mean by this is set the backdrop value to what is right opposite what is the current state now. So let's say the backdrop value is false at this point. So whenever this function execute, so it will then basically set it opposite. So it is false now, it will set to true, and if it's true then it will set to false, so right opposite. Okay, so that's what I'm doing in this function. Okay, and we have to pass this value to, I basically want to declare the backdrop component in the sidebar. So I have to pass this value through prop drilling, let's say, to this sidebar, a sidebar component. Okay, so I can say backdrop. So here I can say this dot state dot backdrop value. Okay, and I also have to pass a function, but this is for it now, and I want to see basically that if it's render whenever I click on that navigation bar, the hamburger menu. Okay, so I now have I now have this value through a backdrop props. Okay, so props dot backdrop. Okay, so what will I do? I will just basically pass the backdrop value as a, I can say here, backdrop value here. So props dot backdrop, I believe, but I think is lowercase. Yes, it's a backdrop, is camel case basically, back and then drop. Okay, so I'm passing the value from the state of the state through sidebar to the backdrop component. All right, so if we go to the backdrop component, and now I have the I have backdrop value, so props dot backdrop value here. So now here what I can say is I can set so let's say all right, so in the return statement what I can say is when props dot backdrop value is true, only then you can return this backdrop div, all right, or otherwise return null. Okay, so what I mean here is so as you can see, the value is false here now. So let's say we set the value to true somehow, and then when it's true, then it passes the value through sidebar to the backdrop component, and the backdrop component will then listen to the state of the backdrop value. So whenever it's true, it will then render the, basically return the div, right? The backdrop div we just you just saw is a little bit transparent color. All right, if it's false, then it basically return null. Okay, so that's the logic behind it. Okay, and at this point we should have everything up and running. So let's see. Okay, brilliant. As you can see, it's working. So we have the navigation bar and the backdrop, but one thing, when you click on it, as you can see, nothing happens because we haven't basically declared or defined any event listener on backdrop. Okay, so what I want to do then is I want to set a, okay, the best place is to do it here. Okay, so what I want to say is on click I want to basically return a function. Okay, so the best place to define the function is in the component where basically we have the state. Okay, so here what you can do here, we can basically declare the function here. So let's say I call it toggle backdrop maybe. Okay, and then it basically, what it does, it I can use the same method here, or I can just, okay, the best thing is to set it like set state. Okay, then it basically takes another function, another arrow method where, okay, so that would be previous state, and that's all we need here at this moment. We don't need any props. Okay, so that function will then return a JavaScript object where we want to basically what we want here. So when you click on the backdrop, we not only want to close the backdrop, we also want to close the navbar. Okay, so both at the same time. So for that, the best thing would be basically I can basically pass this function, because these both function basically does the same thing. So let's see if it works, because the function is basically set the value right opposite, so it should work, and we don't need the props here, it's just the previous state. Okay, so sidebar I need to pass the function. Okay, so for that okay, and then I can say that sorry, toggle backdrop, I can say this dot switch draw. Okay, so that basically will do the same thing, I believe. All right, so let's go to okay, so I have passed as a toggle backdrop to sidebar, so toggle backdrop sidebar, and from there I need to pass it to the backdrop component. Let's say I name it, sorry, toggle bar. I say props dot toggle sidebar, I believe. toggle backdrop, sorry, toggle backdrop. Okay, so toggle okay backdrop, and I believe it's a lowercase. Yes. Okay, so toggle backdrop, we're passing to the backdrop component as a toggle bar, and then props.toggle bar, I will basically say props dot toggle bar. Okay, props dot toggle bar. Yes, so that basically it, and let's hit save, and let's see if it works. Something happening here. Yep, as you can see, it works, right? So when you click on the hamburger menu, both of the navigation bar and the backdrop component appear, and then when you click on it, both of them gone. So at the beginning I saw some weird behavior. Let's see if it comes or not. Okay, no, it works just fine. Okay, so that's how we basically get the backdrop. Okay, and so that's basically, we are basically using one function. Okay, so we don't need two functions for that. So we're basically technically defining declaring one function that set the value, whatever the value is, basically set the value to opposite. Let's say if it's false, it will only work for boolean value. So so you have to remember that if it's false, then it will basically set the value to true. As you can see, it's not previous state dot backdrop. Okay, so what the previous state is, all right, so as you can see, so when the function basically fires, so before that it has a snapshot of the current state. So let's say at this point the snapshot is basically got the sidebar value of false. Okay, so at that point, when you click on this, when the function fires, okay, so at that moment it basically saying whatever the value of the backdrop value is, set to opposite. So as you can see, not, so the exclamation mark is basically means that not. Okay, so not previous state dot backdrop. So the snapshot of the previous state dot backdrop means this false, this value. Okay, this backdrop value and this value is false. So so it'll basically set the value to true, and then basically we can set some logic, or we can basically use this value to do something about it. Okay, so that's the general idea. Okay, so as you can see, when we click on the hamburger menu, and if you reload the app, basically we have to save the file, and when we click on the hamburger menu, it basically works. So the backdrop works. Okay, it appears on the screen, so when you click on it, it just get away. But when you scroll, as you can see, the scroll is we can still scroll, so that basically not right. So whenever we click on the hamburger menu, so the backdrop, the element behind the backdrop value should be disabled, so we cannot scroll through. Okay, so for that I am basically there is a library for that. The React basically provided a library for that, and that is basically called the body scrolling. I have a documentation here. It's a body scroll lock. Okay, that's very simple. So they have provided some documentation, very simple. Okay, and there is basically one command you need to copy. So if you're using npm, so this is the command, or is the yarn is basically the same. Okay, so in our project I have basically put it already, but I will still show you how to do that. So basically body body scroll lock. Okay, so I have installed it already, that's why I'm not doing it, but you have, if you haven't do it, so you can do it. And then we have to import it in our project. So let's say import something from a body scroll lock. Okay, but then we need to basically import basically two functions from there. So one of them is called body scroll lock, and another one is called enable body scroll lock, and another and then we need another one as well, but we are not going through in this video. So so basically two method or two function, I should say. The first one is basically very self-explanatory. It says disable body scroll lock. So this is basically a function. So let's say if in a particular moment we want to disable the disable the screen scroll, okay, we want to disable the scrolling, then we basically execute the method, and whenever we want to enable scrolling again, then we just basically execute the function. Okay, in our opinion, in our case, the best place to execute this method is in the return state render statement. So basically every time the value of the state basically change, the layout component will then basically re-render, but the best place to do it is in the shoot component update lifecycle hook. As I haven't go through the lifecycle hook, so I will basically do it in the component, say in the render method. Okay, but you can do it in the shoot component update anyway. Excuse me. This.state.backdrop value is true. So the idea is whenever you click on the hamburger menu, and then basically we want to disable the scrolling. Okay, so as you can remember, when you click on the hamburger menu, our state basically change, the backdrop value basically becomes true. So that means whenever you click on it, the value is changing. So if it's true, the backdrop value is basically true, only then we want to call the disable body scroll, and disable body scroll then basically take an argument of, let's say, target element. Okay, it's basically an HTML element, let's say body, or let's say HTML, anything. But in this moment, in this case, we will basically pass the document. So the root of everything, like the root of all DOM tree or anything. Okay, so basically nothing, just basically we can anything happen anywhere. So basically nothing, basically we can scroll. Okay, and that will basically stop scrolling everywhere. And if it's not the case, let's say the backdrop value is false, at that moment we can want to basically enable body scrolling, and that should also be the document, right? So that is the case. If we hit save and you go back to our project, in our app, as we can see, if you click on it and see I'm scrolling, but I can't scroll. But whenever I click, exit from the hamburger menu, I can scroll. Okay, so that's very handy. And if you don't use the library, trust me, I did on one of the project, and it basically took me a very long time, and it was like, a head scratching moment, very critical if you don't use this library. And this library is basically make our life so much easy. It's body scroll lock. Okay, anyway, so that's basically that's all about this video. I hope this video would be helpful to anyone if you're suffering, or if you have facing any problem regarding to the backdrop. Okay, and if if it come useful or if you like this video, then please hit the like button, and if you like, then also you can subscribe. Or if you have any question, then you can also place in the comment section below, and I will try my best to answer this question. And if I have any like if I have any problem or any like if I haven't done anything in the right way or proper way, you can feel free to write in the comment section below, and I will try my best to figure it out. Okay, till then, stay keep learning and stay motivated, and don't give up. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video. Bye bye.